Hello, Coolman229 here with another Topic of the Week video. This week's video will be on BioShock Infinite, more specifically Booker and Elizabeth. This week's topic was sent in by an anon on Tumblr, and they asked, what is it you love about Booker and Elizabeth, both as individual characters as well as their relationship, as well as the fandom's feelings on their characters? What are your thoughts on that? Ah, yes, I love Booker and Elizabeth's relationship. I have done so much analysis on them, in BioShock Infinite in general. It's kind of ridiculous. But before I go into their relationship, I want to talk about them individually, as the Anon wanted. Booker is an interesting character. I always liked his character design, and I'm actually cosplaying Booker. I even have a Booker RP blog. I really like Booker. And playing the games, I really liked his character even more. He reminds me a lot of Solid Snake. He's definitely someone who's experienced a lot of crap and done a lot of horrible things and is just a self-hating mess. Sorry. I will be doing spoilers for BioShock Infinite. BioShock Infinite and Burial at Sea. I will be talking about this without any care. Sorry, I should have fronted this with that. I will be going over spoilers. If you don't want to hear spoilers for BioShock Infinite, then don't watch. Okay, now I have that out of the way. Booker is such an interesting character to me. I really like characters that have done bad things and want to atone for them, or maybe if not atone, to do better, to at least try to better themselves in some way. One thing I like about Booker is that he recognizes very much what he did. That he killed Native Americans for the sole reason that he was scared that he'd get killed by his fellow soldiers, because someone found out that he's of Native American descent. He's violent and has very little self-control when it comes to those situations. And he becomes almost a recluse to himself, and he's isolated himself. Really, who does he have before he's dragged to Colombia by the Lutesses? What does he have? A room, a detective business, and a whole bunch of booze. And crippling debt. Booker's a mess. He definitely deserves the title of Trash Dad. Just because, man, Booker is a mess. Even when he gave up Anna, I know a lot of people gave him flack and tried to make everything all about that. He regretted this so much. He literally fought himself to get Anna back, and when he failed, he was so traumatized by the fact of what he had done, his mind couldn't handle it and blocked those memories out. He spent 20 years completely forgetting that he was a father. Booker, I just feel so bad for him. And you can hear it in his voice when he's when you're going through the halls of, I don't remember exactly what they called them, when you saw the things about the Wounded Knee and just the Wounded Knee exhibit in Colombia, that he does not want to tell Elizabeth what happened, and she talks about it, and she knows he was there, and he just, I don't want to talk about it, because what's he gonna say? Yeah, I slaughtered a bunch of Native Americans. for completely selfish reasons. And I mean, the game even remains fairly vague on stuff, just because Booker does not talk about it. Elizabeth is... Poor Elizabeth. She's kidnapped when she's a baby. She's brought to Columbia and studied for 20 years. People for some reason always seem to forget that the Luteces literally caused the entire plot of BioShock Infinite. She studied by the Luteces for 20 years, locked up in this tower with her powers repressed, and is hoisted up as on some pedestal by Comstock as his seed. She starts out really innocent and naive. Like, really naive. Not stupid, just naive. And throughout the game, she does become a little more jaded and a little more cynical. Now, I really like Elizabeth, too. I mean, love Elizabeth, too. I love BioShock Infinite, but Elizabeth, I mean, it's funny because it's not really something that I processed when I was playing the game, and I'm thinking about going through the game again, just looking at things, looking at the plot, looking at the characters more. You know, you see Elizabeth go through this, and especially after she comes back from Comstock House, she's, at least for a little while, she's very pissy at Booker. That she had to endure torture for, I'm guessing it's a month or two. The game never really explains. She just describes it as long enough. But not long enough to break. Because I know it was 6 months when I think Comstock started to break her in the other timeline. It gets confusing. But then she does seem to wind down a little on that. Because one thing they say is that it's funny because it's almost instantly, there's this, and maybe not from Booker's end, but there's this caring between Booker and Elizabeth. Booker not so much at first, but definitely Elizabeth towards Booker. I mean, she sees Booker at first and she's like, are you real? Is this real life? Because she's never, her little utopia in her tower has never been disturbed. And then everything crazy happens after Booker gets her. And then all the adventures in jumping across and killing Daisy Fitzroy, and she starts becoming much more, what's the word? She starts realizing that the world isn't such an innocent place. A part of this is good for her. She does need to understand that, you know, everything's not just happy sunshines and rainbows, but she does get traumatized. And then there's Elizabeth in Burial at Sea, and she's totally nuts. But I think that Anon was mostly referring to, because I personally, I mean, it would take a while to go into my own views of the ending and how everything connects to Burial at Sea. I view the main game, BioShock Infinite Elizabeth and Burial at Sea Elizabeth, as two completely separate characters, two different Elizabeths from two different timelines. That in itself is an entirely different discussion. So I'm going to be focusing on the main game, what we see in the main game. Now, as far as the relationship, I love it. I am a sucker for parent-child relationships in fiction. Absolute sucker. Especially father-daughter relationships. Especially surrogate father-daughter relationships, which Booker and Elizabeth kind of are at first, and then until the end when he realizes, holy crap, you're my daughter. But I did a write-up on this on my blog, that Elizabeth is actually very much like Booker. If you take Elizabeth and Burial at Sea, when she had her godlike powers to warp dimensions to her pleasing, warp around dimensions at will, she definitely goes Dr. Manhattan. And in her rage, she becomes the very monster she's hunting. She becomes Comstock, basically. She murders Comstock, and this is a big distinction. She goes after the Comstock in Burial at Sea. She goes after that Burial at Sea Booker, even though, like, yeah, he got that one version of Anna killed, but he felt so terrible about that he ran off to a different place. And, the Lutesses say, Comstock always ran away from his problems, but he was trying to help people. He tried to help Sally, and it's something that Elizabeth didn't even realize until episode 2, when she lost her powers and she was no longer not omnipotent or omniscient. She really isn't. But when you have all this information pouring in from all these different dimensions, you can basically go to wherever you want. It becomes overwhelming, and and I describe it. It was very much Dr. Manhattan. She became inhuman, basically. But one thing that is very important in Burial at Sea episode 2, this is one thing I love. When Elizabeth lost her powers, what happened? She created an entirely fictional version of Booker. She created a Booker in her mind that helped her out. And the way she talks to him, you realize she says that he was her only real friend, and she killed him. Elizabeth doesn't have anyone really besides Booker. I mean, if we're talking about the story, and they really rely on each other. One thing that I think, this is part speculation, part analysis, that I really think that Booker and Elizabeth help each other from becoming their worst. I think Booker really grounds Elizabeth. Now, this is very especially important. Once she unlocks her, her full power, once the siphon is broken, and she gains full access to her powers to, whoosh, like she did at the end of the game. One thing that would I think prevents her from becoming Dr. Manhattan is that having Booker. Having someone that keeps her grounded. And I think Booker needs this too. I'll explain that in a second. Booker, this is a problem. I don't like Watchmen. Dr. Manhattan was just a jerk. But Elizabeth has all this power. But what did she not have in Burial at Sea? What did a Burial at Sea Elizabeth not have? She did not have any anchors. She didn't have the Lutesses. The Lutesses were off doing their own machinations and plans and stuff. They're not a stabilizing element because they can whip around to different timelines too. She didn't have a single person to ground her, and I think that's what Booker is. I think her killing Booker is what really sets her on that path, because she killed the one person that really cared about her and someone that she really cared about, under the false assumption that if she killed him, she could make bad things stop happening. And of course, that mindset grew even worse as time went on, because she started just hunting Comstocks, just mass slaughter. Who knows how many Comstocks she killed. And I think this happens in reverse. Booker, to his own, makes bad decisions. He the whole thing at Wounded Knee happened, and then he met Annabelle. Was it Annabelle or Annabeth? Just a second, let me look this up. Yeah, Annabelle. He met Annabelle. They got married, had Anna, and she died. Then Booker started drinking. and that accrued his gambling debt and whatever debt he had. That caused him to give Anna away to Comstock, and Comstock, I'm guessing, just threw a bunch of money at him. Booker makes bad decisions. This is why he is the trash dad of BioShock Infinite. He doesn't have an... I honestly, I mean, given that we don't really know much about his relationship with Annabelle, he doesn't talk about her a lot. What we learned of Lady Comstock doesn't really show us anything, but I do think that she was definitely a positive influence on him. He settled down. They were gonna start a family. She died, and that screwed him up. I mean, honestly. And I do think if he had Elizabeth, Booker had Elizabeth. Even if he didn't give her, if he rescued Anna, if he managed to, and I'm sure there are plenty of different universes where that happened. If he rescued Anna, I'm sure he definitely made positive changes. It's, of course, speculation, but I like to think, I don't know, just, it makes sense to me that he would have done better to, as a father for her, not giving her away, for money, because he had debt. But even Game Booker, getting Elizabeth, and even just, I don't know, going off to Paris, going back to New York with her, living with her, having his daughter back, I think that would be such a strong stabilizing element for him. And on top of that, Elizabeth is pretty savvy, much more savvy than Booker. And, it's just this thing that, we need people. Generally humans need other people. And, sometimes we really do need family. And I do think that Booker and Elizabeth need each other. They've gone so much of their lives without each other. I mean, Elizabeth only had freaking Songbird. And that's not exactly a great relationship, because Songbird kidnaps her and tries to kill Booker. Let's see. But yeah, I actually, the tag I use for Booker and Elizabeth, like, if I ever post something that's about Booker and Elizabeth, I always tag it as Broken Circle. I think both Booker and Elizabeth are prone to behavior that puts them on a downward spiral. And they say the song "Will the Circle Be Unbroken?" Will things keep going on in the same way? And I think, people try to apply that to the plot overall. I think I apply that less to the plot and more of their characters. What's going to happen with Booker? Who knows all the crap he's done in the last 20 years, but, aside from the Pinkertons and being a strike breaker? He busts up strikes by killing people. Yeah, but I mean, they make bad decisions, and I do think that they would have a positive influence on each other. That's something I love. I mean, it's just those type of relationships are so interesting to me. I love these parent-child bonds in fictional works. I just love seeing stuff that isn't immediately gone towards romance. That they say, you know what, we can make a platonic relationship that's nice. Like, I don't know, Luke and Leia in Star Wars. They could have gone the stereotypical route of making them of a romance, but they ended up becoming brother and sister. In Adventure Time, before I stopped watching it, my favorite relationship was Simon and Marceline, because there's so much interesting stuff between. Honestly, even the ships I did have, I mean, I didn't like them as much as I like Simon and Marceline, because it's such an interesting relationship. There's so many dynamics in that, with how Simon treats Marceline the way her father never did, and she becomes a sort of a ray of hope, or someone that he can think about, he has this child to take care of after he's lost everything. It just gets me. That's one of the reasons I just love Booker and Elizabeth. I mean, unless some people ascribe to the all Elizabeths are going to end up like Burial C. Elizabeth, which I don't understand that. They're all going to become murderous psychopaths, which seems to be a pretty one-dimensional understanding of the plot. And there are also a lot of little moments. You know, I already knew going into the game that Booker and Elizabeth were father and daughter. That was pretty much the only thing I was spoiled with. So I didn't even know that Comstock was a Booker from another reality. And when I got to the ending, that was like, what? There are little moments. One of my favorite moments comes at the end when Booker is about to go into the door that leads to the crazy mind screw ending. And Elizabeth puts her hand on Booker's and says, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And Booker's like, "Hey, yeah, I'm going to kill Comstock." The way she looks at him is very empathetic. I mean, I really think, you know, that at that point she had power. She can look into all these different dimensions. She probably saw Booker's past and what happened and what he'd done. And she saw what kind of a tortured soul he was. I think she had sympathy for him. And honestly, I refuse to accept that. I mean, I honestly don't think the ending happened exactly like that. I mean, and again, that's another topic. I mean, just discussing the ending by itself can fill up an entire topic video. I want to kind of ignore that a little bit. Focus on the Booker and Elizabeth. I refuse to accept that they would let Booker walk into a suicidal situation. Elizabeth and the Lutece twins, after all the work the Lutece twins did to try to fix their mistake of kidnapping Anna in the first place, I refuse to believe that they would just let Booker walk into a certain death when he's the only one there who doesn't know what's really going on. He doesn't know that Comstock was a Booker, and on top of the logical inconsistencies that most people assume happened in the ending of... Never mind. You know, and I honestly don't think Elizabeth would let him. But again, I'll probably cover that on a topic later on down the road if someone wants to ask me about my interpretation of the ending, which in itself is a huge discussion because there are so many theories on that. But it's just that one moment when she puts her hand on her hand on his and asks him if he really wants to do that. She doesn't want him. And honestly, she might not even want him to find out who Comstock really is, just because, I mean, geez, if they just told him to his face and said, Comstock was an alternate version of you, Booker would probably flip. Like, he'd probably want to kill Comstock even more. Oh, another moment I can't forget. Another favorite moment is that what was it? I think it was when he rescues Elizabeth from Comstock House, and she's basically like, "I'm going to kill Comstock." And Booker raises an objection to that, and she's like, "You can't stop me." And he's like, "I'm not going to stop you. I'm going to kill him for you." And it's kind of odd considering that he's basically saying, "I'm going to murder someone for you." But given that Booker has already done so many terrible things, he doesn't want Elizabeth to fall to the dark path he went down. He's already on it, and I guess it's one of those I'm already a demon sort of a thing. That he would do it for her to alleviate her of the pain and that comes with murdering someone. I mean, I do think that's as sweet as a a gesture as Booker can manage. The man never hugs Elizabeth once in the game. I was a little mad. I was really hoping for a press E to hug Elizabeth. I was just really hoping for something like that. But we never got that. But yeah, I mean, I just love Booker and Elizabeth. I think I've exhausted that part of the topic video. I hope I haven't gone too long now. Now, okay. Fandom's feelings on them. A lot of people... I've seen two different views of Elizabeth. One is either super sweet and perfect innocent, must protect at all costs, the ultimate cinnamon roll, or literal psycho death murder machine. It's like they take both extremes and they focus entirely on that. There's some people who obsess over the burial at sea Elizabeth, who is a murderous psychopath hell-bent on utter destruction of everything she hates. And then there's Elizabeth you first meet, who loves dancing, singing, la-di-da-di-da, and just wants to go to Paris. I do find it interesting that most people will draw Elizabeth in the Lady Comstock dress, which is what she's most known for, and the dress that she's in most promotional materials. But it's funny because a lot of people will either treat her like a cinnamon roll, or treat her like a complete, complete nut job who doesn't take any crap and will kill everyone. It's kind of weird to me because to me neither of those are what I would maybe not ideal, but those aren't I would think the most balanced Elizabeth. Because the cinnamon roll one, she's nice and it's nice and everything, but she's really naive. It took Booker lying to her realizing that Booker was lying about going to Paris, that she realized, oh crap, maybe things aren't nearly as perfect as I thought. Well, and then again, there was still drama going on. Booker having to carve a bloody path through Columbia just to get to the First Lady airship. And I do think some people tend to forget that, one, there are multiple different versions of Anna and Elizabeth. Because a lot of them tend to think, there are some people who tend to think that every single version of every single character is going to be the exact same in every single timeline. And that everything will always end up exactly the same, which I don't know how, because the entire plot is that there are infinite possibilities, infinite timelines. There's a huge multiverse out there. That's why it's called BioShock Infinite. Now, Booker, I was saving this one for last just because of how baffled I am by it. The fandom almost seems entirely focused on his negative traits. There's a lot of people who focus on the trash dad, and yes, Booker is. I've said this before. Booker is the trash father. But it's like they entirely focus on that. And this actually gets to my nerves sometimes. And some people almost completely neglect that Booker does have positive aspects. And sometimes people tend to focus, I've seen so many comics that are entirely focused on Elizabeth mocking Booker being salty at Booker for giving her up. And I understand that, but I tend to gravitate more towards fluffy stuff. That's them being a happy family. Mainly because I don't know if this is just me or if this is just what I've seen on Tumblr and online. It's just so much, there isn't enough art of Booker and Elizabeth being happy. I've seen plenty of Booker and Anna being happy, but Booker and Elizabeth sometimes, I think people tend to focus on the negative parts. And then the worst of this, that is minor compared to the fact that some people actually bash Booker. they consider him a bad character because he did bad things. While in the same breath praising and defending Daisy freaking Fitzroy. Daisy Fitzroy, who in several timelines started a bloodbath massacre of the civilians of Colombia, who, they may be racist, but they sure as hell don't deserve to be slaughtered wholesale. And then the Vox Populi were scalping people and pinning them to a board. It's just disgusting and gross. And she murdered Fink, and she was going to kill his kid. I think it was Fink's kid, but she was going to kill a kid, and then people want to treat her like she's this, oh, it's just Daisy Fitzroy, she's just fighting injustice, and she is. The problem is that she's just as bad as Comstock. There's one line from Booker. I love this line. It's one of my favorite lines in the game. He was like, the only difference between Fitzroy and Comstock is how you spell the names. They're basically the same person, essentially, on different sides, the same different faces of the same coin. And yet people treat her like she's this cinnamon roll. Like, I'm not kidding. I've seen people portray her as this. And Booker is just pure evil. I've actually seen people claim that Booker did the things Comstock did, even though they're two separate characters. And it baffles me. Like, this isn't just because I like Booker. It's just from a common sense perspective. I don't understand how people can willfully ignore the good that Booker does, or the fact that Booker did bad things, and he knows he did bad things, and he hates himself for it. Honestly, the guy essentially lost almost 20 years of his life because he couldn't handle the fact that he gave away his daughter, and his wife died. I mean, the man suffered enough personal tragedy. It has nothing to do with his bad decisions. His wife died on him. And he already had a tendency to make bad decisions. And I can only imagine if we actually got to see that part of his life, just what kind of a downward spiral he'd fly on. But then again, these are also people who claim that Ken Levine is a racist who hates black people, and that's why Daisy Fitzroy is a villain, despite the fact that I honestly think she's a well-written character. She's just evil. She's just crazy. So I don't generally take those people too seriously. But the fandom is weird. The BioShock fandom overall is weird and creepy and disgusting, and even sometimes disgusting. And it's just baffling. I don't even get involved in the fandom. Just like, I'm not part of that. I mean, I like these games. I love the BioShock games. All 3 of them. All the DLC. And all the characters and stuff. But fandom, no. I generally don't take the fandom too seriously. I just check out the cool art. I think that's it. Hopefully this video isn't too long. Jeez, my goal was to keep these under 20 minutes. I feel like I've gone on for like an hour. Well, yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this video. So, if you want to send me a topic, just comment below if this is YouTube, if you're on YouTube, or if you're seeing this on Tumblr, just send me an ask. Make sure to put topic : and then ask me what you want me to talk about. Just make sure that it's kind of specific, kind of like this one. You know, it's specifically about certain characters. You know, but I do have rules, and I will post them below on both YouTube and the post on Tumblr. So just make sure to read that. So yeah, thank you for watching.